The Constant, Part 5, Finale. It's strange how a life can be both good and bad at the same time. On one hand, things were blossoming well for me and Ryan. We were taking each day as it came, which was just perfect. I got to know more about him in the space of those weeks. With him, I could laugh and be merry. He made me feel giddy in a way that I did not expect. We were at the most exciting stage of a relationship, which was the getting to know each other stage. There were furtive looks and gentle kisses. We hung out nearly every day, doing the most mundane things, but they did not feel mundane for me. He was not just anyone. We were twin flames, with the same wicked sense of humor. On the other hand, my life was crashing and burning with regard to my family. My mother had started to spend less and less time at home. I could not blame her. Dad and Goldie were everywhere. One could never escape them. Her shrill, giggly voice never fainted to haunt my dreams. I hated the sight of them. I felt betrayed. My dad and I had never been close, but this was a fucking blow to the gut. His excuse for not wanting to get his own place was that he wanted his family under one roof. He would not know the definition of family if it hit him in the face. Ryan was my escape. No, not an escape. He was my happy place. With him, I feel all the bullshit that was going on in my life much less. I could focus on the highs and forget the lows. That is the strange thing about life. The highs were sky high, and the lows were bottom of the abyss low. We had been hanging out for a while. We had lunch together at work nearly every day. I was starting to develop really strong feelings for him, and I wanted to make things official. To be honest, I didn't even care about how the rest of my family was going to react. My aunt already knew, and her opinion of me was what mattered to me the most. So I set about planning a date for Ryan and me. There was no stone left unturned. I asked him out, telling him that it was a surprise. He was weary, of course, for he hated surprises with a passion. But I reassured him that it was something good. We drove until we reached a shop. He looked at me in confusion when he saw where I had brought him. "I thought you hated bikes," he said, clearly bewildered. I chuckled at his surprise. I liked making him happy. It was true. I was not the biggest fan of bikes, but I liked him enough to get on one. The owner, Sanjay, was a friend of mine. I had asked him a favor. I had asked him to lend Ryan's favorite bike, a Harley, to us for the afternoon. The look on his face after that was simply priceless. He gave me a very sweet kiss and whispered sweet words into my ears that made me blush. He would be the death of me. Him and his sweet words. So we got on the bike and I held on tightly to his waist. My heart beat a little faster. I could not tell if it was from the nerves or being so close to him. I think it was a mixture of both. He started the bike and off we were. The initial feeling I had was fear, but slowly, when I got over my fear of falling off the bike and decimating my bones, I was filled with excitement. It felt like I was flying, watching the town fly past me. It felt like I was traveling through time. I felt invisible. I was not part of the present. Everything was carrying on without us. We were alone in our own bubble, and I loved that. I understood now why he liked motorbikes so much. I had seen it through his eyes. He finally stopped at a place I had not expected him to, the junkyard, where we had begun, the night when Steph had betrayed me. "You brought me back here," I said. "Yes, I brought us back to where we were reborn, in a sense. That night set in motion the repair of our friendship," he said. "The night I will never forget," I said, leaning on him. We sat down in a patch of grass and were silent for a while. "I want this to be a new beginning for us," I said, turning to look at him. He looked so ethereal that I could not take it. "How so?" he asked. "I feel as if I need to say these words. If I do not, I shall not have peace. I really like you. I need you in my life. Will you be my boyfriend?" I said. His face lit up and my heart warmed. He cupped my cheeks and leaned in for a kiss. Our lips connected and we began kissing. It was gentle, and he left me hungry for more. But not today. I wanted to savor this, feel it, not rush it. We broke apart for a while. "Yes, I will be your boyfriend," he said. 2 months later. Summer was over. I had enrolled in the local business college and he had decided to pursue being a mechanic. We were also in love as ever before. My parents had found out about a relationship 2 weeks after we made it official. My mother had walked in on us making out in our room. It had been super awkward, as you can imagine. No one wants their mom to walk in on them and their significant other. I decided to hold a family meeting and tell everyone about it. I wanted them to hear it from me, not someone else. I did not care much about what the reaction would be. I had not gone out of my way to hide my relationship. They just did not pay too much attention to me. The response was supportive from my mother and Goldie. My dad, on the other hand, droned on and on about how I was letting the family name die by choosing to be selfish. I had, of course, walked away. Goldie turned out to be a better person than I thought she was. She was very supportive of me and did all her best to mend my and my dad's relationship. I was very surprised, but it brought us closer. Eventually, my mother started going on longer and longer trips until she decided that she was going to permanently stay in Rome. It was a bit of a blow to me. Now, 2 months later, I was in college. Anne was doing better. We had been advised to see a doctor who was a specialist. The doctor had been treating her for the past few months. Soon enough, she was no longer bedridden. Her health improved and she was soon able to walk again. I was so ecstatic. She also began kicking mine and Ryan's asses in video games. So unstoppable. As I said, the highs were very high. Life was going quite well. It was not perfect, but it was manageable. One day, as I was sitting on one of my classes, the secretary entered the class. She went to speak to my lecturer. The lecturer called me and I went to her. "Hey, there's a call for you at the office." I was puzzled. What could it be about? I followed after the secretary and soon we arrived at the office. She dialed a number and handed the phone to her. "Hello?" I said. "Hello, Sunnyside Hospital here. Are you Annabelle Smith's brother?" A woman's voice came through. "Yes, it is. How may I help you?" My heart sank to the bottom. I hoped that she had not relapsed. I did not want her to get worse than she already was. I had so much hope that she would go back to being healthy. "Would you please come to the hospital? I cannot get a hold of either of your parents," she said. I hung out and I flew out of there. I ran through the halls and straight to the parking lot. I got into my car and floored it to the hospital. It was 20 minutes away, but it felt like I was driving 20 years. I could not get there fast enough. When I finally got there, I answered all the questions the receptionist asked me, but I could not get information on how my sister had ended up there. This got me very anxious, as I waited for the doctor to come and explain everything to me. While I waited, I called my dad, but he did not pick up. I also called Ryan, and he said that he would come as soon as he could. I called Goldie as well, and she explained that Dad was doing a conference call, but she would get him to the hospital as soon as she could. I tried to call my mom, but it went to voicemail. I figured that it was due to different time zones. As Ryan arrived, a doctor carrying a clipboard came to me. I did not even give her a chance to speak, as I bombarded her with questions. "How is she? What happened? Will she be alright?" I said. "Your sister was in a car accident," she said. "What? That did not make sense. She could not even drive, so how had she been in one?" "What? But she cannot even drive," I said. I was very confused. "She was not driving. Someone ran her over," the doctor said. "Oh no, what in the world?" I felt my vision becoming blurry as tears gathered in my eyes. My poor innocent Anne. This was not fair at all. "Is she okay?" I asked. "She sustained major injuries and internal bleeding. She's barely hanging on," the doctor said. My hopes sank. "Can we see her?" I asked. "Of course. Follow me," she said. I walked after her until we reached my sister's room. I walked up to the form that was lying on the bed. She was struggling to keep her eyes open, but she was awake, at least. Her face had some bruises while her body was covered in cuts and bandages. It broke my heart to see her in that way. She looked so weak. Why was life so unfair? Why could she never catch a break? Life was always so cruel to her. She had begun her journey to recovery, but now she was back in the hospital bed. "Anne," I said. "Brother," she whispered. I held her bony hand in mine and tried to keep the tears from falling. "You'll be okay," I reassured her. "No, I will not," she wheezed. Every word was taking the life out of her. She looked so tired and lifeless. At that moment, Dad and Goldie burst into the room. "My baby, my poor baby," Dad kept on saying. I had never seen him so unhinged. His face was pale and his eyes held so much sorrow. "I have to go," she said. No, she could not be saying what I thought she was saying. I could not survive this. No, I could never. "No, you're not going anywhere," I said. I held on tightly to her hand, as if I could hold her so tightly that her soul could be tethered to mine. "Fix things with Dad. I love you all," she said. Then the light left her eyes. I stared in shock at her green eyes staring into nothing. I expected her to start laughing and telling me that she had pulled one on us. I wanted to wake up from the nightmare. What sort of night terror was this? "You can stop pretending now. I know you're not dead," I said, but she did not listen. She kept on pretending. "Really, I get it. You're a good actress. Please stop now," I said, shaking her. "Son, she's gone," my father said in a cracked voice. "No," I said quietly. "She's gone, my love," Ryan said. I roared, I cried, and I screamed. I would hear later that they had to inject me because I lost all control. I remember nothing. I remember just losing the sense of all time and place. The bond between us was unbreakable, yet now I felt emptiness like never before. I felt as if my soul had just been ripped out of my body. I woke up a few days later at home. I felt drained to the very core. Ryan instantly woke up as soon as he heard my voice. "Thank goodness that you're awake. I was worried about you, honey," he said, kissing me on the forehead. It was such a small gesture, but it made a whole difference. I felt a bit of warmth flood back into me again. "My love, you will not believe the dream I have just had." "What are you doing here so early in the morning anyway?" I asked him. "It was not a dream," he said. As soon as he said that, everything came flashing back to me. I looked up at the sky and pleaded with whomever was listening to wake me up. But this was not a dream. This was my reality. I was depressed for several days after that. My mother came back to the country and I saw her for the first time in months. She looked like she had not eaten in days. I held her as the sobs shook her fragile body. Soon, the day of Anne's funeral arrived. I wore the suit that she loved most on me. I felt as if she was smiling down on me. I wanted to look my best for her, even if she was not there. One thing she valued was tidiness. The ceremony was intimate with extended family members and close friends only. The time came for me to say a few words. I walked to the front, trying my hardest to put one foot in front of the other. When I got to the front, I focused on one pair of eyes, the eyes of the person I loved the most. He was telling me that it was okay. He was telling me that he was here and that she would be proud of me for being so strong. I started speaking. "We are gathered here to say goodbye to a piece of my heart, a shooting star that has burnt out. My sister, Anne. I know that you did not mean to leave me. I do not resent you. Victims, aren't we all? I still needed you, but you were snatched away from me. You were the kindest person ever, and the most honest. Who is going to call me out on my nonsense now that you are gone? You have left a gaping hole in my heart. This was not fair. Your time had not come yet. Today, we celebrate you. Your life and who you were. You're not dead. Not in my heart. You will live forever as part of my soul. Till we meet again," I said. I caught my father looking at me as I made my way down. He was filled with so much sadness in his eyes. I had never seen such raw emotion in his eyes. He was very hurt. Her last words kept on playing in my mind. How was I going to make things right with him? 2 days later. "Son, can I speak to you?" my father said as he joined me on the front porch. I was just sitting there, deep in my thoughts. "Of course," I said. He sat down next to me and was silent for a while. He then took a deep breath and started speaking. "Son, our relationship has never been easy. We have not always gotten along. Sorry for being so difficult. Losing Anne made me realize just how important family is to me. I want to fix our relationship. I'm also sorry for not accepting your sexuality. It was wrong of me to do. I hope that you will find it in your heart to forgive me." He finished. As soon as he said those words, a knot loosened in me. I suddenly felt better than I had in days. "I forgive you, Dad. I'm also sorry for how I've been treating you," I said. He brought me in for a hug. I snuggled in. I had never felt so safe in my life. I had no idea that I was missing something like that in my life. Just then, a hooter sounded. I turned to look at the source of the sound and I found Ryan on his motorbike. I ran up to him, careful not to drop the urn I was holding. "Hey, love," I said, kissing him on the cheek. "Hey, you, are you ready to go?" he asked. I nodded, and we got on his bike. Once again, I felt the familiar thrill. I was beginning to love riding bikes, despite my past views. We arrived at the beach a few minutes later. We walked hand in hand till we were where the sand met the water. "I will love you forever. Thank you for teaching me how to love unconditionally," I said. As I set her ashes free, for a moment, I felt as if they sparkled just like the stars as they hit the water. Ryan hugged me, and I felt content. The world had been cruel to Anne. Now she was in a better place. And so was I. Ryan was my better place. "I love you," he said. "I love you too," I replied. The end. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become part of our Rainbow Force and stay wholesome.